It's a horrible set. Like horrible set. You got like crap over here that's just sticking off the shelf, not organized. All like wires hanging down. I went the wrong fucking way. There's a tear in the chair. Right there, I can't even fucking point at it, Jesus. So I'm going to be talking about television in 2017, at least the shows I watch, which, admittedly isn't a lot. If you're wondering what shows I'm going to be talking about, well, not these, unfortunately. There are a lot of big shows I haven't seen yet, and I will get to them. Maybe you'll even see them in the 2018 television video. But yeah, there's some pretty big shows I haven't seen yet. These are going to be the shows I'm going to be discussing. All of these, like nothing's being left out. If it's on the screen right now, it's going to appear in this video at some point. I am going to be talking about spoilers with some of them, not all of them, but some of them, so time codes are in the description if you don't want things spoiled for you. So yeah, let's talk about some good old TV shows. We had another really good season of Better Call Saul. I would say seasons 1 and 2 were better, and the only reason I say that is because season 3 is the first season where it really feels like you need the context of Breaking Bad to enjoy it. It's not impossible to enjoy it without Breaking Bad, I don't think. And realistically, most people watching Better Call Saul have seen Breaking Bad, but it's like Gus's story in the season, because Gus Fring is a character, he feels very... I don't think his story would work without Breaking Bad, because there's things that he's doing in the episodes, without the context of Breaking Bad, really don't mean anything. Like, there's him finding the laundromat that Walter and Jesse eventually cook at in the show, but it's like shown once in the season, and after that not mentioned a single time after. So really, there's like no significance to the scene aside from if you saw Breaking Bad, you'll get this. I also think it is way too slow this season. Like, way too many scenes that just drag on with not a lot happening. And Breaking Bad did that. The first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul did that. I think that this season of Better Call Saul has done it worse than any of the previous Breaking Bad seasons or any of the other 2 Better Call Saul seasons. It just dragged on. There were so many scenes that just dragged on and they went so slow. There's so many scenes where Mike is doing his job and it's like 5 minutes of him walking around, driving, checking out places. It gets boring. I like Mike. I do understand you have to show how tedious his job is to kind of get you into the story, kind of get you to understand what Mike does and how boring his job can be at times, but it is just too many this season. Way too many slow scenes. But the stuff with Jimmy and Chuck was outstanding. That court episode was probably the best episode of the entire show, and the ending of the season was on a discomfort level and a depressing level like Breaking Bad. It was on that level. That's how uncomfortable, that's how depressing, that's how fucked up the season 3 finale's closing scene was. There was a couple of moments in the season that really felt like Breaking Bad, and I really like that. As a whole, I wouldn't say it's as good as the first 2 seasons, but it was still very good, and I'm very excited to see what the 3rd season does. And even though it's not the best season of the show, I do think it has the best episode of the show, so I'd give this season like a 7 out of 10. Next, we have Rick and Morty Season 3. A lot of people were criticizing the season as the episodes were coming out, and I was kind of on their side for the longest time. Rewatching it, I think the ABCs of Beth is really the only bad episode from the season. I think that it's a very different season. They're trying to tell a story, but also still do a lot of episodic stuff. And with there only being 10 episodes, it didn't work. But most of the episodes are still very enjoyable. 2 of the episodes I would just flat out call masterpieces to the show, like the premiere and the Rick Lantis episode, those Tales from the Citadel, that's what it was. Those were outstanding. 2 of the best episodes, probably the 2 best episodes of the show in my opinion. I love them. They are so well done, and just those 2 alone completely justify how long the show took. It was so well done, so great. Loved every second of it. Absolutely my favorite 2 episodes of the show. Outstanding. Then there's 3 episodes that I would actually consider to be great episodes, like Pickle Rick was one. I actually did really love the Vindicators episode. I know this one was another heavily criticized one. I was laughing my ass off. I think it's one of the best episodes this season. I thought it was great. I know it's not like the most impressive one story-wise, but I don't care. I was laughing and I was having more fun with that one than I was with a lot of the other ones. I thought it was great. Vindicators is a great episode in my opinion. And the Whirly Durly Conspiracy, which was the Rick and Jerry episode, which was just as good as it sounded like it would be. It's everything that you want out of that idea, out of that setup. It's the only good Jerry episode we get this season 2, which is really disappointing to me because Jerry is a really hated character, and I understand he has a lot of really unlikable qualities. I'm not saying he's a good person or anything. I find his character to be hilarious, and I feel like he's always had some of the funniest side plots. Like, a lot of people really love the Meeseeks episode, but remember, that was like the Jerry story of that episode. The Meeseek story was a Jerry story. That one's great. I really love the simulation one where he's too stupid to tell that everything's a simulation. I really love the Jerry daycare. I really love the one where him and Beth go to the marriage counselor and the two monsters of that form out of what they see in each other. Great stuff. He's a great character, and there's been a lot of laughs from him. This season, he sucked. He sucked so much. He was hardly in it, just like Summer, and this is the one good episode with him in it, and that was too bad, because I really like Jerry, and that was one of my big problems with the season, as I feel like Summer and Jerry completely got pushed aside. People say Beth got pushed aside. I don't get that. She's in every single episode this season, and she gets more development than, I'd argue she gets more development than any other character. Rick and Morty obviously get more screen time, but they don't really develop on screen that much. Beth, it seems like they did a lot for her character this season. Summer, they start to, but then they stop, and then Jerry, I hated his one side story in the ABCs of Beth. I thought that was a horrible episode. The whole Pickle Rick thing, yeah, the meme got old. A lot of the memes this season got old, but I don't blame the episode for that. I loved it when it first came out. And I don't think the fans of something can really take that away from me. Some people say a fan base ruins something for them. I don't get that at all. I think that's a really stupid way to look at it, actually. But to each their own, I suppose. I liked Pickle Rick a lot. I thought it was a great episode. And then there's 4 pretty good episodes. Like, I can't call them anything great. Like Rick Manson the Stone and the one where they have the toxic Rick and Morty. I don't remember all the names to the episodes. Those had really good stories. They had a lot of really good jokes the second and third and fourth time I watched them, because there's a lot more stuff you pick up on. There's a lot more subtle humor in those two. But they weren't as funny as your normal Rick and Morty episode. It was just they were very well written. The stories were good. The character development was good. But the comedy lacked a little bit. That was my problem with those two. Morty's Mind Blowers, good episode, but I think some of the longer skits in that one weren't as funny. Like, I think that the Smudge one was pretty bad. I thought that the one with the weird light bulb guy wasn't that funny. I felt like there was a lot of bits in that episode that really dragged on, but when it hit bullseye, it really did hit bullseye. There were some great moments in that one. And then the finale was funny. It was just a shitty finale. Like, it didn't work as a finale at all. It was very... I understand it's like, oh yeah, Rick lost, that's a big deal, but they don't treat it like it's a big deal. It's a very funny episode. I just think it fails as a finale, and it wasn't even supposed to be the finale, so I mean, it makes sense that it doesn't work as a finale. They had to rush it at the end. I don't know why we couldn't have just given them the time to make the 14 episode season, and they could have done it properly, but whatever. Call the 100 like the ultimate guilty pleasure for me, because I know it's a flawed show. It's done by the CW, and they have a bunch of shows where they're trying to do all kinds of special effects and crazy visuals, but they have like a very, very small budget compared to movies that do stuff like that. They're trying to do what movies do on a significantly lower budget and more screen time. So yeah, there's corniness. There's a lot of corniness in those types of shows, and I can't get into most shows on the CW. The 100 is like a guilty pleasure on the level that I enjoyed as much as I enjoy a show that I wouldn't consider a guilty pleasure. It is such an unbelievable good time. Every single season one-ups itself. They have balls to kill characters off that were pretty significant. It's like a mix of sci-fi, fantasy, war. There's a lot of emphasis on leadership, and that always has, to me, been like the main motif of the 100 is leadership and the shitty things you have to do when put in that situation. And yeah, like, there might be some things I'm blind to if this show is basically why I'm calling it a guilty pleasure. I might be giving it more credit than it deserves, but I love it. Like, I can't really complain about that much in it. I absolutely love it. The newest season was great. I think it was better than the third, second, and first one. I think every season, like I said, one-ups itself. Every season is better. I'm sure season 5 I'm going to like even more than season 4. It is such a wonderful show, in my opinion, and I just love it. It's, again... There's some stupid stuff in there for sure. It's not as smart as a lot of the other shows I'm talking about, but I love it. It's such a good time. The speeches are ridiculous. The characters go through such huge transitions. They are very different characters now than they were at the beginning of the show. There's a ton of effort put into it. I really love it. I couldn't recommend it more. I did a whole derailed episode on Brockmire. Funny show. I liked it. there's not a lot to talk about with it. It's like there's story to it, but it's a very small story. You have the guy who voices like tons of Simpsons characters. I think Hank Azaria is his name, and he's wonderful in this. And it's a funny show. I really liked it. It's not like a fascinating story that goes along with it. The characters are kind of just okay, but it's more focused on making you laugh, and that's what they do, and they did it well, so I'd recommend it. We had another excellent season of BoJack Horseman, kind of like the 100. I feel like every season it gets better. I will say, I think I like season 3 a little bit more than season 4, but I mean, that's getting really specific there, because I'd probably rate them like the same score, being honest here. They're very close to each other. I think the 3rd season was a lot darker and a lot more depressing, and I'm a fucked up person, so I enjoy that shit. It was funny. They did something different. I said in my one discussion video that they needed to change it up now. Like, the cycle of BoJack making the same mistakes over and over again was great for the first 3 seasons, but they needed to change it up for the 4th season, and they did it wonderfully. And I don't really have any big complaints with it. A lot of people have a lot to say about this one. A lot of people really hate Diane, and like even more this season. I like her. Like, the whole BuzzFeed company she works for, they are kind of making fun of people like that. And they make fun of people on the left and the right all the time. I guess my only thing with it is Todd felt very disconnected from the season. And he got some really great moments, and the episode that he had to himself was wonderful, and he's there throughout the whole thing. I guess it's just his story seems smaller this time. Like, the last season he had Emily as a big part of his story arc, and he had the falling out with BoJack, which was really big. I think in this season, the whole asexual thing, which, not a bad thing to talk about. I didn't have a problem with that storyline. I think they handled it very well. It definitely seems like it's put on a way smaller scale than anything else he's had with his character yet, though. I feel like he's been more involved in the first 3 seasons. He's still, I'd say, in the same amount of season 4 that he is in the other seasons. It's just, it seems like most of his appearances in these episodes are just as comic relief now rather than part of the story. I'd say the 3rd episode was really good story-wise for him. After that, they kind of stop. So yeah, new season of BoJack Horseman was really good. I really liked it. Big Mouth. I know some people who actually like this show quite a bit. For me personally, I saw the trailer and had the same reaction everyone else did. I thought it looked like garbage. And then I watched it, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. It was still bad, but not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. Because I thought it was going to be like the worst thing ever. And I wasn't having a heart attack about it over like some people were.
It's borderline child pornography and overall screwed up and twisted! But that's just one YouTuber's opinion. I don't know.
There's a really good Freddie Mercury impression. There's a song which is extremely well done. It sounds just like him. That part was amazing. The animation style is garbage, but I think that it would almost work because, yeah, it's puberty. They're kind of supposed to look ugly. It's a show about puberty. I think it would have been a lot better if they would have just given the characters like these black pupil eyes instead of the weird pearly eyes. I think I Hit Everything mentioned something like that in his review of it. And he's right. It would have been a lot better. It probably would have helped with the comedic expressions a lot more. I don't know. I don't know why people feel the need to make eyes like that. It's a lot better if you do it the way Sausage Party did it, I guess. It's so ugly. It's so ugly, those pearl eyes. That bothered me a lot more than anything else with these characters. There's some jokes that work. There's some characters that are occasionally funny. I think that Nick Kroll and John Mulaney can be very talented. I think John Mulaney has some really good stand-up. Nick Kroll, he's made me laugh before. I like the Kroll Show, but I swear to God, he does a lot of voice acting. He does a lot of appearances in other shows, and he annoys me like 90% of the time with those. Whenever he's not doing a voice, I'm normally better with him. I don't know. He's talented. He's funny, but he's also like one of the most obnoxious people. I just find him unbearable sometimes. I've seen worse. I've seen way worse. I'd say it was better than Modern Family Guy. I'd say it's better than Modern Simpsons, honestly. It's bad, but there's an idea in there. There's material in there that could work. I guess that's the best way to put it. There's material in there that could absolutely work. It's all over the place, and there's a lot of jokes that don't work, and there's a lot of annoying voice acting. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. F is for Family. I like it. It's nothing special. The animation looks like garbage, but they've got some interesting characters. They've got some good laughs. It gets really fucking bizarre sometimes, but I kind of love it for that. I like it. Second season of Stranger Things was very enjoyable. A lot of people really didn't like the Elle episode, the one that focused on her and the different group of people, because they said it was too different in tone from the rest of the series. I don't know, I kind of like them trying new stuff out like that. I thought it was an interesting episode. I know that they're being accused of ripping something off from, like, I don't know, X-Men or something. My friend Zach went on a rant about that in our podcast. I'll link that in the description. I don't know anything about that, but I enjoyed that episode. I enjoyed the whole season. I really liked the team up of Dustin and what's his name? The guy with the bat. I suck with names. I haven't watched the show in months. There's a lot of effort put into the show. There's a lot of good comedy. There's a lot of, like, you know, all the characters at the very least. None of them are anything groundbreaking, but they're all enjoyable. I don't think there's anyone on the show who's, like, really unlikable or really horrible. I really like the doctor character they added this season. Yeah, I mean, I had a fun time watching it. I'll definitely check out season 3 when it comes out. It was really cool to see characters like Will come back as a really big character for the season, and then characters that were big in the last season, like Mike, got toned down a bit. I like that they're kind of balancing out a lot better. They created some new dynamics between the characters, some new pair-ups. Hopper and Elle was a big one, and that was huge this season, but they don't really have any interactions in the first one. So, yeah, I mean, really good stuff with that season. The newest season of South Park had one really hilarious episode and then a bunch of mediocre episodes, and that's normally what South Park is now. It's very hit and miss. I think every single episode has something funny in it, but it used to be every episode of South Park was just hilarious. It was like hit after hit after hit after hit. I think season 15 is the last great season of South Park. 16 was a piece of fucking shit. And then everything after that was hit and miss. And I think that's what it is still. A lot of people blame that on them focusing on current events rather than just telling, like, the stories of these kids. But I think they have to stop that, because if they kept doing that, I feel like they would end up like The Simpsons or Family Guy. I think that they need to change it up, just like they added, like, storytelling to the newer seasons so they can find new stuff to work with. I think that they need this new material. I don't think South Park is ever going to be as funny as it was before, because they're still doing it. They've been doing this show for 21 seasons now. I think the fact that they still find a way to make it funny, though, is incredible, because I've never seen a comedy last as long as South Park and still be funny. Never. So it's an accomplishment. And the North Korea episode I thought was hilarious. I really loved that one. The Last Man on Earth, like, it... sometimes it's great, and sometimes it is the worst fucking show ever. I thought the first season was very interesting, because you have this asshole character who, as time develops, like, people don't just accept him being an asshole. It's not like one of those TV shows where the main character's an asshole, but no one really cares that he's an asshole. They just accept it. No, like, as the first season progresses, more and more characters become un-okay with him, and it just results in this, like, really dark finale, and I love that. I love the build-up they had in the first season. In the second season, it's not as dark, but I think it's very funny. I think they have a really good relationship between the two brothers that they have in the show. I do think it's funny. I do think the character development is done well. And then the third season, aside from having a really cool set, was a piece of shit. And then season 4 started off seeming like it had a lot more potential. And no, they lost that pretty early. It's just Tandy's being cringy, Todd's being an idiot. There's occasionally an emotional speech. There are moments where it's okay. Like, I really like Gale still. Gale's like the one character who stays enjoyable throughout the entire show for me. And I'm gonna finish season 4. It is pissing me off, though, because, like, there are talented people on the show, clearly, because the show was so enjoyable for me at one point, but they're just so hit and miss, and the third season even has some good stuff in it. It's just, they also have a lot of stories that they set up and then decide to skip months later, for no fucking reason, just because, hey, let's, like, start all this shit and then not show its conclusion on screen, because that's how you fucking write stuff. So much shit that doesn't work. So much shit that's just so repetitive. I hope it ends strong. I really do. It was going so well, and these last 2 seasons have not been good. Steven Universe. Okay, let's do this. Steven Universe is a competent show. It has good animation. It has nice colors. Some talented musicians working on it. Some of the voice actors are pretty good. And it has an interesting story. Maybe a bit all over the place at times, but it's good. It's original. I haven't seen anything like it. The whole concept of the show was very original, and I liked that. It's not funny, though. Like, that's my big problem, and maybe I'm just outgrowing it, You know, it is a kid show. I acknowledge that, and if anyone says they love the show, you're not wrong to love it. There's some really good stuff in it. You could say that the reason it's not funny anymore, and I don't know if it ever, I used to laugh at it. I don't know if it's just I outgrew it or it's genuinely becoming less funny. You could say that the reason now that it's not funny is because there's these big story arcs, but they still do tons of filler episodes. And I'm fine with filler episodes as long as they're funny. Gravity Falls had a big story, but then they would occasionally cut back and do something silly, like they had the whole story of Stan and his brother, but then, they have a Dungeons and Dragons episode, which is very episodic and not connected to the main story, but it was a very funny and well-made episode and felt worthwhile. Steven Universe, I think the moment where I really noticed how unfunny it was is they have a whole episode about recently about Mayor Dewey trying to get reelected, and there's no jokes in it. Like, they're not trying to be funny in this episode, but the story isn't interesting enough on its own, so what was the point of making this? It's just hard to sit through sometimes. There's talented people on it, really talented people on it, and I'm not going to shit on anyone who likes it. If you like it, I'm glad you do. I used to really like it, but it's not doing it for me anymore. I think I'm done. Unless if there's like 20 more episodes left and it's actually really close to ending and I'm just not aware of it, then I'll sit down and watch all of it. But if there's like another 100 episodes of this, pass. So that's all the shows that came out in 2017 or had new episodes in 2017. But let's look at 3 shows that I just watched for the first time real quick, talk about them. I'm not going to go on this long, no spoilers. First, we have Home Movies. I didn't realize this until recently because I started watching it in 2017 but continued watching it this year. I don't think they have a script for that show. I think it's just they get voice actors in a recording booth, or did because it's been off the air for a long time now, and just have them record stuff and then put horrible animation over it. But it's really funny and very relatable as someone who made home movies all the time as a kid. And I love it, and I will keep watching it slowly because it's not a show I can binge ever. I'll watch an episode and I'll be good for like a week, but every time I watch it, I really enjoy it. So Home Movies gets a thumbs up from me. Parks and Recreation, very good show. I really enjoyed it. I actually binged that one pretty quickly during the summer. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought, like, I started watching it, and everyone says at first it's kind of just like an Office knockoff. Even though it's done by the same people, it feels too similar to The Office, but eventually it finds its own thing. I actually like the first 2 seasons, but I agree it gets a lot better and becomes more of its own thing. I think it was funny, and I think once it branched out and did its own thing, I actually enjoyed it more than The Office. And I really do love The Office, so that is saying something. It was a good show. I really liked it. Finally, we have Community, which I fucking adore. I'd actually say it's tied for first as my favorite TV show now. I've rewatched it already. I've rewatched certain episodes a bunch of times. It's done by Dan Harmon, who went off to do Rick and Morty. It is so good. It is so great. It's up there with Breaking Bad and Full Metal Alchemist for me. It's tied for first with those 2 shows, which are my other 2 favorite shows of all time. Really, all 3 of them are completely different shows. Like Breaking Bad, I guess, is my favorite drama. Full Metal Alchemist is my favorite anime. And then Community is my favorite sitcom. They are just such great shows. I love everything about them. And Community goes up there as like one of the greats for me. And it does peak at the end of its 3rd season, because season 4 they fired Dan Harmon. I really actually liked season 4 of Community, but I was under the influence the entire time I watched it, so maybe I should rewatch it and rejudge it, because I haven't rewatched that season yet. I've rewatched the first 3. 5 and 6 are good because Dan Harmon's back on them. I at least know everyone else liked them. I think that Donald Glover leaving the show really hurt it. Chevy Chase I was fine with because honestly, like in season 4, he wasn't fucking showing up for his job, so it's not like he was there. Like, it gave me a whole season to get ready for him to be gone and to not really mind that he was going to be gone because of how little he cared during that season. So you kind of get sick of him by the end of the 4th season. But yeah, like I do miss the season 1, 2, and 3 Pierce for sure. And then Shirley leaving, that one really hurt too. I'd say Donald Glover was the worst departure from the show, but Shirley didn't make it any better. But the show was still funny. They still found ways to make it work. I'm glad they got those last 2 seasons. It does peak after the 3rd season, so what makes it my favorite sitcom of all time does end after the 3rd season. So yeah, look out for that 2017 watch list video that's going to come out someday. And I'm working on a new show for this channel that isn't review related. It's actually me making my own shit, so I'm looking forward to that. It's making my own shit that you guys can shit on. So have fun. I don't even think I shit on movies. I think that I've been very nice on this channel.